Jimmy's got the mic, the crowd goes wild. Talking dreams we chased since we were both just a child. Entrepreneurs,
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Elite Real Estate Podcast on this fabulous Friday morning one more time. So, again, guys, very excited to be here again. Just like I usually am on every Friday morning at 7:30, and very excited for my guest too. So I'm going to bring him on right now, Mr. Russ Lagan, my friend. How are you?
Hey. Good morning. Only you could get me up and dressed like this time of day, brother.
Well, I knew we would see a vest today.
You know how hard it is to look this pretty at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, look, you make it look so easy, though, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not wearing pants. That helps.
We'll make sure the cameras don't.
Hold on. I got this. My jeans. I got jeans on. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Come on. What are we talking about?
Like, some people ask me too, how do you get like it's 7:30 in the morning? How are you excited this early in the morning? I'm like, well, it's when I get to hang out with cool people, I get really excited. That's what I mean for. When I can hang out with Russ, I'm like, I'm hanging out with Russ this morning. I'm excited.
Well, that's awesome, brother. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're live on KGCI. We're streaming everywhere, YouTube, Facebook. We got the live call-in line. That's the Breakfast Club line is in there now, and people are hopping in there. But man, for the people that don't know you, and if you're listening to KGCI, they obviously know you because you're Mr. KGCI. But give us your background, man. Like, where did you start? Where are you going? What's going on with you right now?
Yeah. So, Jimmy, I'm a real estate nerd. I don't know what else to say. I kind of got the bug back in 2005, and I'd done a bunch of house remodeling. I was in the kitchen bath business doing design and project management. And then I decided I'm not going to make this guy that runs his company rich. I want to make myself rich. So I started my own company, brilliant stroke of genius, and then learned how to starve for 2 years. So that was fun. And I started a countertop company making countertops out of concrete here in Detroit, actually. That was back in 99 to 2005. And then when I finally decided to either go big with that or sell it, the real estate market here was getting smoked. And I didn't even really know what that meant until I became a real estate agent here in Detroit, Michigan. So I got licensed as a real estate agent. So I'm like, I know a ton of stuff about houses and I'm pretty good with people. So let's rock and roll. And so I got into the real estate business 2005. I ended up interviewing the number one guy in our office at that point. I won't name names, but the interview kind of went something like this. Hey, man, can I take you out to lunch and pick your brain? And he's like, yeah, man, got to eat. Oh, God. That's an enthusiastic response. So I end up having lunch with this guy. I'm buying. And my question, I'm thinking I'm the most brilliant guy in the world at this point. I'm like, if you were me and you were going to start over in real estate, what would you do? What would you do? And the guy's like, I'd get out of the business, Russ. I'm like, what? He's like, I'd run now while you got the chance, man. This market sucks. So Detroit was getting hit pretty hard in 2002, 3, 4 because the auto industry was getting smoked. So, it's kind of interesting. I ended up having my wife's cousin in town very soon after that. And they had, graduation party for one of the nieces, something like that. He and his wife were in town with their daughter. And he's a real estate guy in Tampa. He's like, Russ, man, like, you want to get into real estate, you got to come down to Tampa. An idiot can make $100,000 a year in Tampa. And I'm like, I'm the biggest idiot I know. Let's go. So I ended up moving to Tampa, Florida. And then I got to learn how to build a real estate business, knowing 0 people in a market getting destroyed. It was a great move.
So you voluntarily got punched in the face like
twice.
Twice.
The first time was like I moved into it accidentally. The second time I moved into it intentionally.
Yeah.
And then of course that intention turned into something. So currently, it's worked out fairly good for me. I'm currently the vice president of eXp Realty for Growth. My job is to help grow the company. I'm Growth West. So basically I have almost everything Ohio West in the country minus Texas and California. So got quite a big chunk of space and a bunch of people we're working with, and it's a ton of fun, man. It's a wild path. It's always wild.
Yeah, it is. Real estate, it's one of those things. It's constantly moving. It's constantly changing. That's one of the things the reason that we have ADD works so well in it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, new squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh, another new squirrel. This is great.
Well, Mindy Riley from Indiana says, good morning from Indy.
Good morning, Mindy.
People hopping in there. Al Abdallah says hello to the two best people.
Oh, not Al. What is that guy doing up in the morning? He's probably at the gym.
He probably is. I'm sure Al is at the gym. Yeah. Yeah. And then Lisa LaRue says hello, guys.
Yeah. Hey, Lisa. Say hi to your dog for me. All right.
Yeah. So as everybody's pouring in this morning, the Al says the vest guy. See that?
That's all you need to know. I mean, like the vest guy, and everybody's like, yeah. There's a funny story behind this. So in my early days of being an adult, I was actually a licensed hairstylist.
What?
I was. I worked. So I got licensed as a hairstylist. I'd cut everybody and their brother's hair when I was in my teenage years, because it was like I had a pair of scissors. My dad had a pair of clippers because he used to butcher the crap out of our heads when we were kids. And so I would sneak them out of the house, and I'd cut everybody's hair, because my buddy's like, "Oh man, can you shave a patch off here?" And that was back in the day when you just shave random patches off your head, and everybody thought it was cool. I grew up on a skateboard, so like the more jacked up your haircut was, the better. And I was super great at jacking up haircuts. So after a while, you kind of get good at it. And then next thing you know, I went to 2 years of theological seminary.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if a lot of people know that about you or not.
Yeah, no, that's not super common knowledge. And one of the things that it was two things. Number one, I realized that I don't cooperate well with being told what to do. And number two, I really don't cooperate with being told how to believe and how to think. So if you are a free thinking person and asking the wrong questions, they don't want you to hang around too long. In that particular environment, I'm not saying all of them, I'm just saying that particular environment, it was like, you're going to do this way and believe this way. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, like, explain it to me. And of course, the explanation was worse than the thing you're being told. So I was like, all right, it wasn't working out. But in the process of doing that, I lived in a dorm for a short period of time, and I would have a line of 4, 5, 6 people on Saturday in the morning waiting for me to wake up so I could give them a quick haircut, so they go out and do whatever. So I was charging $5 a haircut, but I was making all my fun money doing that.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, this is back in the 90s. So and then when I decided to leave there, I'm like, I didn't know what to do with myself, and decided to get licensed as a hairstylist. I'm like, why not? I'm already doing it anyway. I'm good at it. So got licensed as a hairstylist. So I did that. And I worked in a professional hair salon for here in Farmington Hills for 4 years. So
so that one I didn't know. I knew the seminary part. I didn't know the hairstylist part.
Yeah. So when I was working as a hairstylist, like, you end up getting stuff all over you. So I ended up wearing various types of vests. And it's like, I didn't like the way they look, so I would kind of, dress them up a little bit. And then I started finding non-hairstylist vests. And I was like, I could wear this for a while, and then every, month or 2 or 3, I could turn it over. So next thing you know, I've got like a bunch of different types of vests, and like, it just looked better than wearing a plastic schmuck, type of thing. So it's like, that was a thing back in my 20s. And when I started getting into professional business, I'm like, I don't want to look like every other dude out there in a jacket, a shirt, and a tie. I don't want to look like a stuffed shirt. I always done things differently. So I just started rolling back in the vest and the tie. And then unfortunately for me, I was at one of these big events, and somebody had paid Tony Robbins to come in and talk for like 2 hours. And Tony Robbins was like, you got to have a brand. You got to have a style. You got to have a flavor. You got to have a feel. You got to have something you're known for. And I was like, oh, damn it. Now I'm going to be stuck with a vest for the rest of my life, because this is what people recognize me with.
Yep.
I could walk in a room with a hat and a hoodie on. Nobody'd know me. I could walk in with my head cut off with this on. People be like, hey, it's Russ.
Right. You could have a mask on and not see your face. And you walked in, everybody would know it was you with that vest on. Yeah,
it was funny. A buddy of mine actually did a Halloween party. This might be too much info. A buddy of mine did a Halloween party, doctor. So it's a bunch of high-level professionals. And I didn't really know what to dress up as. So I wore a mask, wore this shirt tie, and then I wore a pair of, underwear. And then I pulled a pair of boxers over it. And I had my shoes and my socks pulled up. And I walked in with no pants, basically. Of course, I was appropriately covered and so forth.
Right.
And everybody's like, what the hell are you doing? And I was like, I looked at Rich and I go, have you ever had a dream? And he goes, oh my God, dude, that's a freaking nightmare. It's like, you ever had the dream where you're out in public and you don't have pants on? Every guy in the room was like, oh my God, I've had that nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always, and the ladies are like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then every guy had to explain to their lady that they have this dream that they go out to, they're doing something, they're going into a meeting and they don't have pants on.
Yeah, the nightmare of being on stage somewhere, right, and talking, and then
Yeah,
you look down and you have no pants on.
exactly. And like, almost everybody I know has had a version of that dream before, and they're just like, "You are so weird," but I had a great time with it.
Oh man. And so like we were jokingly earlier and I said you might be the most interesting man on the planet. And you said, I don't know about that. I said, but now you've added the hairstylist to the thing. I mean, man, I think it might be true. Like
I know,
you can see that you have this stand-up bass behind you. And
yeah,
the people that don't know, your woodworking is
yeah.
amazing. Like your woodworking is amazing.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
yeah, I mean, the stuff you did, don't hit the thumb again, right? Because I don't know if
Yeah.
people saw you
Oh,
on
yeah.
social media where you ground your thumb down, but
Oh, yeah. Angle grinder to the thumb right before Christmas holiday, and literally 7 days before I'm taking a trip to India to see my brother get married. So I'm going to be in India with 17 days, and I have an open wound on my thumb. And let's be clear, I hit it with an angle grinder with a steel rasp disc because I was carving wood. I was making some legs, carving legs for a table because my mother-in-law wanted a little side table for a thing, and my wife's like, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." I'm like, I'm going to do it the way I do it, right? I'm not going to build something normal. Everybody else, you're never going to see this in a store. So I make this three-legged thing and I'm hand shaping it. And the legs are about yay big around. I'm hand shaping it with an angle grinder because it's an odd shape and you can't do that with tools, in like normal tools. You can't put it on your table saw and make round legs. So I'm hand shaping this thing and I get to this one point, I can't really get to it. So I flip the thing over and I'm holding it. And I got my angle grinder in my hand like this. It's like, it goes, poof. I'm like, oh no. And dude, it was like splatter type of thing. And yeah, for all of you morning people that want to be grossed out while you're eating breakfast, it went to the bone, like right through the meat to the bone. So, and somehow I missed the tendon down the side. I missed the tendon down the middle, and I missed the nerve down the side. So lucky enough, I mean, this thing actually moves.
yeah.
Funny enough, it was, I had it wrapped and it was bleeding up until a week ago. So that was 5 weeks ago. So. Yeah. It was one of those things, but I think, Jimmy, the life lesson here is don't hit yourself with an angle grinder. The second life lesson is if you're too afraid to do something, if you're afraid of the scars you're going to get when you're doing something, you're never going to do anything, right? So everybody's like, well, but you'll never use that tool again. I'm like, already did. Like,
Right.
I used it with my hand wrapped up, right? So you can't let the things that hurt you stop you from doing what you love. Because if I did every time, like they're like, well, Russ, I wouldn't do that if I had that happen. I'm like, so then don't drive a car, right? You better not fly in an airplane. You better not ride a bicycle. You better not walk down the street. You know how many people die falling down stairs? So with that being said, obviously you want to be careful what you're doing, but you can't let the fear of what might happen stop you from doing what you love, right? And that's really the lesson. So I really love woodworking. And it's funny because people say to me, like, Russ, how do you live a happy life? Because I'm a big fan of happiness. I've got it tattooed on my forearm, right? So the key is work is work. Work is the thing you do and you trade time for money. And don't get me wrong, I love what I do for work. But when I'm at work, if I don't have something that distracts me and something to think about and something to dream about and something to plan in my head. So like when I'm working, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do next in the shop. When I'm in the shop, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do to take my business to the next level a lot of times. Or I'll get myself in a spot where I'll just go into that blank spot where it's like, I'm just woodworking. I'm not going to think about anything. I'm not going to allow myself to go into business. But you know what the funny thing is? I come up with a lot of really crazy solutions on things that I'm working on in business when I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah, right. That's the part that people don't understand, I don't think. Like what you do with woodworking is like, that's like your, like, people talk about journaling all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's like your journal time.
Oh,
like,
I am journaling. I'm
yeah.
journaling. A whole journal of bass guitars I built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's freeing, right? Like gets that out.
It is. And then of course I forge knives also and cleavers and other various long, sharp and pointy things. So I have a forge in the garage. I haven't been using that because I got in a car wreck in 2021. I've been fighting with stupid neck issues for a bunch of years. So with that said, like, there are times when you're like, at the end of the day on a Friday, it's been a long week. I've given it all I had. Sometimes you just need to fire up the forge, pull out a piece of metal and just beat the crap out of something. Right. And it's not even being mad. It's just like, just release all the energy. So it's kind of funny because people are like, man, it must be great to be the vice president of growth. Like, I'm in high stakes meetings with high stakes wins or losses every single day, 2 and 3 and 4 times. I'm talking to a brokerage with 100 people in it yesterday, right? And everybody's like, that's got to be amazing. I'm like, you realize if I screw this up, I just screwed it up not only for the company, not only for myself, but I also screwed it up for you, because you bring this to me and you're entrusting me with your baby and you're expecting me to close it. Everybody expects me to have 100% close rate, by the way.
Right.
And guess what? Michael Jordan was pretty good, but he didn't make every basket.
Right.
Let's see. What is it? Jose Canseco. But he was batting 300. He struck out 6.5 out of 10 times. They called him a Hall of Famer, right? So, like, we don't win all the time. And you've got to be willing to accept that we don't win all the time. And you got to be willing to accept that everything I make doesn't turn out great. And you've got to be willing to accept sometimes when I'm doing something, I end up taking the skin off to the bone.
Yeah.
Like, but you got to be willing to play. You got to be willing to go all in. And I think that's probably the personality trait for me that's worked best in business is like, which my brother and I have been talking about stock trading because he's been playing this little game. I mentioned that this morning. And like, my problem is I'm like, all right, if you can go for 10, I'm going to go for 50. And he's like, no, 10. You're going to go 10. The moves are in 10s. And I'm like, well, if you do 10s, you do 20s. And he's like, no, you can't. You do 10s. The system works great at 10s. And I'm like, all right, so 30s? He's like, no, 10. Like, as soon as you tell me 10, as soon as you tell me 10, I'm going to go for 12. Because it's just the way I roll. As soon as you tell me I can't run a 22-minute 5K at 45 years old, I'm going to say, you want to prove? I'll prove you wrong, and I will throw up doing it. And I did, and I do, and that's just the way I roll. But it's kind of like my personality trait is just to push everything.
Yeah. Lisa LaRue says, I'm blessed to have an original wood piece by Russ.
Yeah. She's got one of my charcuterie boards. It was kind of funny because I've been asked to make a lot of charcuterie boards. She'll make wood, cheese, and meat and cracker tray display pieces for food for parties, and I've done a number of them with these resin down the center. So I'll do live edge with different colors of resin and so forth, and they're super interesting looking. And it's kind of funny because with my skill set building bass guitars, which are very, very ridiculously highly technical, super, super, super fine woodwork, most people start with cutting boards. And I've gone through all of this and I never built cutting boards. So now that I have this skill set for building bass guitars and electric guitars, now I build cutting boards. But you know what? Funny enough, they're actually more profitable than building a bass guitar. So it's fun money.
Well, time and effort, right? That's what you said it a minute ago. We trade off time for money.
Yeah.
Every day, right? So it's
every day. Well, it's a funny thing is you trade time for money, and then you got to sit down at the end of the day and say, okay, last week, what did I do? So one of the things that I like, something new I've been talking about a lot is evaluate. So it's evaluate, eliminate, and then execute. The 3 E's, right? Evaluate first. It's like, what am I really doing? It's amazing, Jimmy, when we sit down and track what we're really doing, how much time we waste, because people are like, Russ, how do you have time to do all of this? Every week you've got some new thing that came out that had to take you 100 hours. You can't possibly have an extra 100 hours a week. I'm like, well, no, I don't. But I don't also watch TV, and I really don't go out to dinner. So like, what do you do after 6 or 7 o'clock? You've got 2, 3, 4 hours. So if you don't watch TV, so I read 50 plus books a year, right? So I read a lot of books and I make stuff. So if you take all the things that aren't making your life better or more interesting out of your life, you take that stuff out, you realize you have 2 and 3 and 4 hours a day of just waste. So if you eliminate a lot of that waste, can you imagine what you could do if you had 4 hours just to work on? I mean, Jimmy, listen, I'll work in my shop for 45 minutes or an hour sometimes. And if I do that 5, 6, 7 days, it's shocking what you can get built.
Yeah. Because
it's not 10 hours. It's a bunch of little 30-minute and 45-minute and hour. I'll put a couple of pieces together, put some clamps on it, and I got to watch the glue dry. Let the glue dry for 24 hours. I got nothing to do till the next day. So you do a process and then shut it down. Do a process and shut it down, and do a process and shut it down. And if you're intentional with it, you end up with something at the end.
I think that message itself is so important for realtors who are and entrepreneurs basically who are listening to this. Because again, if you go in and spend 30 minutes on something, shut it down and go to the next thing, right? You check off a bunch of things throughout your day that after 3 or 4 o'clock, you can go work in the shop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And your business is running, but you can go work on something else.
I will tell you that I'm kind of an efficiency nerd. Like if something can be done in 10 minutes, I'm going to try to do it in 9. And if I can do it in 9, I might as well be able to do it in 8. So like I hate doing things the hard way. I hate doing everything the hard way, which is also why I hate cleaning my shop, my wood shop. So people will be like, dude, your wood shop's a mess. I'm like, yeah. And every time I clean it up, I turn it right back into a mess the next, like literally by the time I get it cleaned up, the next thing I do is mess it back up. It's like there's people say, well, Russ, you know, the most important thing, and you got this guy on YouTube, and they're like, the most important thing in the morning is making your bed. And listen, I don't make my bed. Like I can I'm just gonna tear it back up the next day anyway. Now my wife will follow in behind. My wife and me.
Yeah.
Just close the door and walk out. Like doing things that don't serve you and move something forward that are productive just doesn't make sense. But for her, she enjoys that. For me, I'm like, why would you do that? It's like it's a waste of time. So you've got to find those things that actually move the ball forward and focus on doing the things that move the ball forward. So we talk a lot about prospecting in real estate, and here's the problem. The word prospecting is used as a dirty word, and it's used as an insult a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's used to shame people all the time, right? So there's a lot of stupid things, little quirks for me. It's like, I don't like prospecting. I hate prospecting, but I like building business. So I don't call my prospecting time. I call it business building, right? So in order for me to build my business, I need more people. So in order for me to have more people, I need to do these things. So I'm going to do those things. And this is my business building activity. Do you want to build your business? Yeah. So I need to do these things, right? And I also don't call people I don't know, or I don't call people I haven't added value to. I don't call random strangers. Calling random strangers to me is gross. Okay. I'm saying it out loud, guys. Would you cold calling random strangers? I think it's gross. Okay. You're like, well, Russ, you're the attraction guy. We're supposed to call people. We need to call people. I'm not saying you don't need to call people, but Jimmy, what I'm saying is if you add value first and then you call them, it's 100 times easier and it's 1,000 times more effective, right? Hey, Jimmy, did you get the thing that I sent you about the thing?
Yeah.
There's my opening. And you're like, yeah, man, I did. It's like, what did you think about it? Dude, that was great. Or yeah, man, I haven't had a time to read it. Hey, man, you got to check that out because point number 2, I think that would apply to you. That point number 2 blew me away, and it was boom, 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 boom. Hey, anytime I pop up with something like that, I'll send it to you. If you see something like this, send it to me. And you start building this network of people that are sending each other really good stuff. And now I can pick up the phone and call any of them because I have something I've delivered to them. So that's why I use the real estate market update. Every real estate agent should be doing a real estate market update every single month that tells people what's going on in the market. Do you know why, Jimmy?
Because it's some value.
It's the only thing people ever ask me about.
Yeah, that's it.
When you're out and about and you tell people you're in a real estate business, what do they ask you?
Yeah, what's the market like?
I know, how's the market, right? Or some variation of how's the market. And I've said to people like, Ross, you say that all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to keep saying it because people aren't listening. How many real estate market updates do I get a month from people that I know they're in real estate business? Next to none. Dude, I know thousands and thousands. I know tens of thousands of real estate agents. I get next to none. Okay. So the reality is, even though we say it, and even though we know this happens all the time, we're still not prepared for it. So Jimmy, when people get the how's the market conversation, what do we typically do? We've been taught to have an elevator pitch, right?
Yep.
Well, you got to have an elevator pitch, right? You got to have an elevator pitch. I'm like, cool. I don't really ride in elevators a whole lot. So what is that going to do? What could that do? They're like, no. Elevator pitch is like, how do you present yourself in 20 or 30 seconds, the time that you're on an elevator? I'm like, okay, great. So somebody asks you a question and then you try to pitch them. How does that work? So Jimmy, you have an elevator pitch?
Of course I do. Okay.
So how many times in the execution of your elevator pitch, somebody looked at you and said, oh my God, Jimmy, tell me more.
That was so that's the thing.
Never.
Right. That's why I always go back to, this is one thing I always go back to is like asking more questions.
Yeah.
Right? Because I want to get more information from them.
Sure.
So I can get it. So my elevator pitch as a question at the end.
So can I challenge you?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to get something from them, try to find out what you can give to them. See, here's the deal, man. You have a dog?
I do.
Okay. Lisa LaRoe has a dog, cute little Scooby-Dooby. But it looks like part pit, part bulldog, cute little sweetheart. Okay. If that dog goes off leash out of the vehicle, unintended, and dog's going, woohoo, let's rock and roll, right? And dog's gonna start running. So how do you catch it? You chase it, right? And then the more you chase it, the more it runs. Like, dude, everybody's like, well, humans are complicated. No, we're not really. If you try to chase them, they're going to run from you most of the time.
Yeah.
Okay. There are some rare people that are so attractive that when they chase people, when they start going for people, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I want to hang out with you all day. But I'm not that guy, right? So if I start chasing people, people will run. So it's this human nature thing. How nature works is no different than chasing a dog. If you got a dog that wants to run and doesn't want to be collared, like you go after it, the more you go after it, the further it goes. Right. And this is what happens in these interactions with people. We have this interaction with people, and then the goal of the elevator pitch is to try to get something from you, try to get their information, right? Try to get something from. So if I'm having a conversation trying to get something out of people, then they're going to want to push back. So if I go into a conversation and try to find something I can give to them, they're going to want to reach in, right? So when I get into this interaction, here it goes. Somebody says, how's the market? I'm like, you know what, Jimmy, I'm glad you asked me that. People ask me that question all the time. I just did a market update the other day that tells people what's going on in the market. You want me to send it to you? And they say, yes. Great. Well, where would you like me to send it? And now they're voluntarily giving me their information because I've got something that they want. It's like this. You go outside and you put up a sign that says hamburgers, right? Hamburgers, $4. And you got a grill smoking. It smells great. And you're next to a golf course, first tee, where I met you first time on the podcast. We're sitting there. If we fired up a grill, put a sign up, said $5 hamburgers. Guess what? You're going to have some dude walks up and be like, hey, man, you got a hamburger?
Yep.
Like, matter of fact, I do. Would you like this hamburger? And that guy's going to say, what? Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's going to be willing to pay you for it because you have something. So here's the art of sales. The art of sales, we've made it super, super complicated. And the art of recruiting, we've made it super, super complicated because when we chase people, they run. When we put a flag up and say, who wants this? The people that put their hands up, those are the people that want it. And here's the thing. People are like, well, everybody would want this, Jimmy. And I'm like, everybody would want this at some point, but they might not want it now. Like for me, I don't want to buy a house. I'm good. But in 2 or 3 or 4 years, I might want to buy a house. So if you're trying to sell me a house today, I'm out.
Yep.
But if you stay in the loop with me, it's like, hey, man, here's what's going on in the market. And I start seeing you as like, this guy's the expert. This guy knows more about that market. If somebody started telling me and marketing to me, here's the best homes available right now in the city of Plymouth. Like, I'd love to live in Plymouth. At some point in my life, I will live in Plymouth. And I've got my eyeball on 2 or 3 or 4 houses there that I really think are cool. There's one on a river with this big glass wall up the back of the house. Love that place, right? If somebody said, hey, Russ, this house came on the market, I would want to know that house came on the market, and I would want to know exactly what the specifications are on that and exactly what it would take to buy that. Now, I may or may not be able to afford it. However, I know if I hang around long enough, that's going to be sold again. Maybe next time it sells, I'll be there, right?
Yep.
So with that said, there are people that want stuff, and we're trying to shove stuff on people that want stuff, but they don't want it now. So how do you stay in communication? Well, you become a resource. You become a value, right? Car people love car stuff. My father-in-law will send me anything that says Porsche on it. He sees something that says Porsche, sends it to me, right? Because he knows I got a thing for him. Okay. So once you figure out what people are into, and then you send them that consistently, next thing you know, you're building a relationship.
Yep.
You're adding value. And every once in a while, he sends me something. I'm like, dude, that was a really good article, man. And most of the stuff, I just pass it. But every once in a while, I'm like, ooh, what are they doing with EVs now? And the Boxster's going to be all electric? What? That's going to be interesting. Now, how heavy is it?
Yeah. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. No, but you're so right. And it's, again, that kind of goes back to, we had the big change in August, right? Where we had to now get buyers under contract, which we should have been doing anyway. But, but like it went back to like, what's the value you provide to someone?
Agreed.
And
well, I think the key is most people don't understand what we do. Most people understand the complexity of what we do. Most people understand the value in what we do. And like I had a number of people in Tampa that I've trained years ago. And my buddy Sean, he's like, I don't get what the hubbub is about, Russ. And I'm like, well, because people are being forced to do something that I taught you to do in 2010, 11, 12, right? He's like, I've always used a buyer's brokerage agreement. I've always sat them down and I've always explained it to them. If they don't want to do that, I don't do business with them. I'm like, I know, because you were trained by me. And Anthony calls me the next day. He's like, am I missing something? Or like, we're already doing this. I'm like, I know, you're right. You got it. And he's like, well, how did you know? I'm like, this is just good business. If you don't explain to people what you do, what your role is, what their role is, by the way, here's what I'm going to do. And here's what I expect you to do. Are we good? And by the way, here's what's most likely to happen. And they go, oh, cool. So when we get into the inspection and the inspector comes back and they're like, well, you've got a couple double taps in the electrical box. You've got 2 GFIs that are popped. You've got an open box in the attic that doesn't have a cover plate on it. And you've got an outlet on the, whatchamacallit, that doesn't have the ground must have come loose. You got an unground outlet. That's just an electric. You're going to have that in every house. Even newer houses, you'll have that kind of stuff. And when an inspector comes back and they're like, and I was like, told you. This is all what we expected. And they're like, dude, you called it, man. Like, you have a crystal ball. I'm like, no, you've seen it 100 times. Almost every house has these issues. So when you start to prep people for what's most likely to happen, then a variation of that happens. They're like, are you Nostradamus? No, just been, I've rode this pony a couple times. I know at this corner, there's a snake going to try to bite you. Go figure.
Yep. That goes back to, so I always use the same kind of analogy, but I call it my haunted house theory.
Yeah.
Right? So if I go through the haunted house,
yeah,
and I come out and tell you everything where everything's at,
yeah,
and then you go through it the same haunted, you're not scared because you already know everything that was happening.
Yeah, it's not nearly as scary when you know somebody's going to jump out and say boo in 5 seconds.
Yeah. So it's like, again, it goes back to like giving the information, like you said, and we've done this enough times that I can already see it. It's funny. Yeah. I have a closing today, actually, that we had to replace the whole panel. It was crazy. I was on the phone yesterday with the city trying to get the inspectors out. Like, it was nuts. But I knew that I had a feeling that was going to happen. I had a feeling that could happen. And Warren told my seller that could be a possibility. Yeah. But when it happened, he was like, okay, just get it.
You called it, and they're like, wow, this guy knows his stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, you heard the old adage, what was that? The one commercial, he's like, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. The farmers, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. And that really is it, right? So this is, people talk about experience. They're like, Jimmy, but I've got 25 years experience. Okay, cool. So you've repeated year 1 25 times.
Right.
Right. Or do you actually have 25 years experience, right? So let's just go back to the woodworking, right? People that will ask me is like, how did you make that? I said, well, 25 years experience. And I didn't start with that. I started with, and it's a progression, and I've learned a bunch of things the hard way. It's kind of funny. I've got a buddy of mine named Sean May. He builds bass guitars. If you want to see custom bass guitar instruments that are amazing, I think his stuff is amazing. Okay. So this guy's next level amazing. And he and I started out about the same time. He was working at Guitar Center as a repair tech. And he would come over to my shop and he'd be like, dude, I screwed this up. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, dude, you screwed that up. And then the two of us would figure out how to fix it. So there were so many things that we did, and we made a mistake on almost every single one of the first 25. And then you're like, I talked to him the other day. I'm like, what number are you on? He's like 160. I'm on like 70. He does it full time. Okay. So he's on 170th instrument at $4,000 or $5,000 a piece, by the way. So 170. And I'm like, all right, so when was the last time you made a mistake on an instrument when you're making it? He goes, what do you mean, when? Like, every one. Like, you do? I make a mistake and everyone like, oh, man, come on, man. Like, you got to stop doing that, right? And you make a mistake. The difference between a good woodworker and a great woodworker is the great woodworker can cover their mistakes. The difference between a good salesman and a great salesman can cover their mistakes, right? So it's not the not making mistakes. It's the fact that you make a mistake and you find a way to work through it and work around it. Or you miss something and you find a way to work through it and work around it. Every single client you work with is different. And you've got to be like, it's totally cool. At some point, we're going to muff something up and we're going to say something stupid. It's part of the game. Get out there and screw stuff up, learn from it, and move on. I call it fail forward faster. Go out there and screw something up. Learn from it.
And that's just the way we learn, right? And it's like watching a baby learn how to walk.
Yeah. The baby's like, I fell down once, I'm done. I'm never getting up again.
Yeah, they never just quit, right? They're never like, yeah, I'm just not gonna walk.
Well, some adults have gone back to an adult version of that, which we call a couch potato.
Oh man, but your perspective is so rich, man. Just because, like, you're always happy, like, you know what I mean, like, and I know you had that tattoo on your arm, and you always are always good to be around. Like, you give this good vibe, like, it just feels good, and I think that is what's propelled you to be where you are today. You know what I mean? I think that's what put you in this spot.
It's kind of funny because people are like, you're one of the most extroverted people I know. Because like you get me into like you put me in a room, I'm good, right?
Yeah.
Like don't put me in a room with a ton of people smashed up against each other. Like I don't like crowds. Funny enough, I really don't like crowds. There's an energy to a crowd and a large population of people. Like you see me at any of our big events, EXPCon, you'll never see me sitting in the middle in the crowd. You'll see me in front because they make me sit there sometimes, being an executive, and then I'll be there for like 45 minutes, and you'll find me if you ever want to find me in an event. Look around the outside perimeter as far away from people as possible. So for me, that's my space, which is kind of weird because people are like, you love people more than anybody I know. I'm like, I do, but the energy of putting a pot, like I don't want to go to a Red Wings game and sit in the crowd. I can do the boxes and stuff, not because I'm a snob and I hold my pinky out. None of that. Just I don't like being in the middle of that pack. When I'm in like you get in those little turn things when you're like you're walking on the path, there's like 1,000 people on the walkway up, and they're all like in a pile. And if anybody at one point could go, and you feel like a bunch of cattle, dude, that feeling is unnerving to me. So I play an extrovert on TV. I'm not really an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert. I'm just a really freaking friendly introvert. So when I'm done at the end of the day, I shut it down. I go away from that's why I do woodwork. I do things by myself. I go outside and I read a book and I'll smoke a cigar and I'll drink a couple glasses of wine and like just leave me alone, because my recharge, I got to get away from people to recharge. So, but when I'm with people, like Jimmy, here's my theory, right? And this is like a visual for most people. If when you see somebody, you greet them like a Labrador Retriever, they're gonna love you.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's like, that's a freaking happy dog. His tail, like you heard that give. He's like, he's a happy dog. He's a happy dog. You know, that's me.
Yeah.
So this is me on my happy mode, but this is something you can turn on and turn off. And they're like, well, Russ, how do you do this? You turn it on and turn it off. It's like, I'm choosing to be enthusiastic. I'm choosing to be articulate. I'm choosing to be excited. I'm choosing to be this person that is loving other people. I'm choosing to look people in the eye and greet them enthusiastically. I do it intentionally. Now, people will say, but you're pretending. I'm like, no, that's who I am. When I'm meeting people and I'm greeting people, I'm hanging up, that's who I am, right? And at some point, I'm done with that. So we all have a part to play. And I think a lot of people, Jimmy, I think the difference between me and most people is I'm actually really, I will be enthusiastic. And by the way, that's a choice.
Yes. 100%.
That's a choice. It is a choice, and you can cultivate it and you can grow it and you can learn it. And people say, well, that's fake. I'm like, I'm as genuine as this is me. In this interaction, this is real, the real me. And when you and I talk outside of this is how I communicate, right? But I also learned a long time ago, if I just communicate just like everybody else and I slow everything down and I don't get enthusiastic, nobody wants to fuck. Dude, I could read you the phone book and you're gonna be like, that was fun, right? But it is something that you do and you play, right? Like these people that we see on stage or these people who see on show, it is no different than being an act. When I am in that space, I am playing a part, I am playing a role. And part of me and who I am is the role of a friendly person who wants to make other people feel loved, seen, heard, and appreciated. And I start with, I want you to feel loved, seen, heard, and appreciated. Right, in all of my interactions, I want to make sure when I meet somebody that they know I see them. I'm looking them in the eye. I'm enthusiastic to meet them, and I'm happy to see them. And by the way, I'm absolutely horrible with names. So if you really want to embarrass me, walk up to me in a random place and be like, "Hey, Russ, you and I've met 15 times. What's my name?" That's how you pay
my name tag. Yeah.
Go. I'm talking to people, and it's the hardest thing. I'm like it's like I'm not looking at anything inappropriate. I'm trying to see your name on your name tag, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, like names they just go. Now I can build you an electric bass guitar from memory. I can tell you where everything needs to go, and aside from having to measure off the fret positions, like the angles and so forth, I can doodle all that crap off from memory. The shapes, the size, the angles, the curves, all of that stuff. I build that all stuff from memory. Like I can't remember people's names. But it is what it is. So people will think, well, Russ, you're this super savant. No, dude, I got a bunch of flaws. I got a bunch of things I don't do well. And I put myself in positions to do the things that I do well. Like you want to throw me on stage, man. I'm freaking happy as heck on stage. Put me on a podcast. Dude, I'm going to rock and roll, right? I have found a way to build my life around doing the things that I'm really great at. And I also enjoy. And you'll find, Jimmy, I won't do something I don't like. I might do it once. I'm like, I'm not doing that again. Right. And it's just for me, it's like, why fill your time and space with things that you don't love to do? So I'm going to find a way to do the things I love to do. For some real estate agents, they're in this business and they're like, Russ, this real estate business sucks. Okay, great. Well, if you got to sit down and say, like, when you interview with me, you can't see it behind me because I cut it off my picture. My recipe is like, where are you at now? What do you love to do? What are you good at? What do you want to do? Right. And then I get into that. It's like, where are you at now? What are you doing? What's working? What's not working? What are you good at? And then the second part is like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What do you want to be good at? So like, people say, well, I want to be good at that. Okay, well, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to practice it. By the way, you don't become a master woodworker in one day. You don't become a master anything in one day.
No.
You become a master by doing it over and over and over and over. Meeting people, talking to people, greeting people, and making them feel seen and heard. That is a learned skill.
Yep.
That is a learned skill. Some people are better at it naturally. Some people are bad at it naturally. So for me, being an introvert, at the end of the day, there's nothing I like more than being by myself. Which my wife, thank God, she knows me, she gets me. She also hears my stuff because she's downstairs and she's like, dude, you're full throttle all day. She's, you got to be worn out. And I'm like, I'm done, right? So for me on the weekends, people are like, we got to go out and do this, this, and this. And like, people are like, Russ, you must have a million friends. I'm like, no, I have like one.
Yeah, I don't have any.
I have one friend, Jimmy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's but I've got one friend because for me, I get all of my stuff out on this. And for me, when I'm done, I need to take time for myself and I need to go into that quiet space.
Yep. You're an extroverted introvert.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm an introvert that plays an extrovert on TV, really. Yeah. So, I mean, by the way, you've seen a bunch of actors, and you see the actors and you see them do these different roles and you see them on stage. You're like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing. And then you see them in their own home environment. They're super quiet. They're super reclusive. Yeah. And for some of them, it's because people are always trying to get something from them. And, for me, it's just a matter of like, I like to go out and just burn it all the way out and then crash. So I'm like a light switch, man. I'm a full on or a full off. I'm not a dimmer. Yeah. There's no dimmer switch on this thing. I'm like full on or shut it off.
Yeah. I've gotten home and I feel the same way too. Where I got home some days and I just tell my wife, like, I'm just done peopling today. I'm just done peopling today. I'm good.
Yeah.
And I just want to go sit down and just like shut it all off.
Go in the corner, sit down. So the nice part for me is Dana and my wife Dana is amazing. She's we've been married 30 years, and she's just one of the most amazing people in the world. And she has some physical disabilities, muscle issues, and so forth. So she has to live a much more. So for her, she has to stay calm and she has to stay quiet and she stays much more reserved because her body just flips out on her. So she has a much more sedentary style. And she has a much more calm style, and she builds this calm environment. So people ask me this all the time. It's like, do you drive your wife crazy? I'm like, no, this is not. This is Russ. This is business Russ. I shut the switch off when I'm at home, and that's where I recharge. So when I flip it on, I'm on, right? So you've got both sides, and it's okay to do that. And it's not pretending. It's like, I love this. I really enjoy this, and I want to show it too. So I've said this to people like, well, I'm really excited. Like, well, why don't you introduce your face to that feeling? Like, you don't look excited. You don't feel excited. But Jimmy, my normal way of communicating is kind of funny because I didn't realize until I started doing video. I want to meet this guy. Dante, love to meet you too. So
we can make this happen. We can make this happen. Yeah.
Wait, is Dante local in Detroit?
Oh yeah. Dante's here local in Detroit. Yeah.
Let's go have a beer, have some fun.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
But you've got to have this balance. You got to figure out how to build your environment. People are like, you got to have this create this, right? Like, I really love this, but I also really like being quiet, sitting in a corner reading a book.
Yeah.
So, you're not gonna see me in a stadium screaming for a team. I don't watch any sports at all, or almost none. I actually have watched a couple clips of Lions, just to prove to myself that they don't suck like they have the last 30 years. So the last time I was excited to watch a Lions game, Barry Sanders was crushing stuff, right?
Right.
So, and I think he was so disenfranchised and the team was so horrible at that point and he was so amazing at that point, he just gave up and quit. He's just like, I've had enough of this. I'm not playing with these losers. And he just left. He just walked off.
Running back of all time just left. Like, I'm out.
Just like, screw it. I'm done, right? But you know what, Jimmy, this is a really good point, though. You have to surround yourself with the right people. right?
Oh.
I do not surround myself with the wrong people. I will not hang out with the wrong people. I will be around the wrong people for a short period of time, and you'll find I would disappear, man. I'm like, what do they call it? Irish goodbye.
Oh yeah.
Poof, he's gone. Like, where did he go? Like, I'm just like, I'm not going to put myself in an environment where people are just negative, putting crappy things in my head. Like, man, you control what goes in your head. That's why I don't watch the news. My wife at 6:30 likes to watch the nightly news with whatever that guy's name is. Anyway, so she likes to watch the world news stuff, and I'm like, I don't like. Why do I want to watch wreckage? Like, she's like, well, you need to know what's going on. Fine, but I'm not going to put that in my head if I don't have to. So the people you hang out with, you have to be really intentional with it. If you want to live an amazing life, you got to hang out with some people that are doing amazing things, even if it's not all of the amazing things. So, like, I hang out with some bass players that are amazing. People are like, Jimmy, do you know I don't know how to play a bass guitar? And I built 70 of them. I can't play it at all.
That's we haven't even dipped into that yet. The fact that you make these bass guitars and they're beautiful. I mean, the stuff you've made is incredible. If you don't find Russ on social media and look at what he's building, but the fact that you don't play them it was always like.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a more of a savant thing, I guess. But but here's how that happened, right? So I started building a bass guitar. I wanted to learn how to play. So I was like, I couldn't find one that I could afford. So like my budget's $300, and all the things I was like, I didn't even know they made $7,000 basses. Right. And I'm looking at the $7,000 bass, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm just gonna build my own. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I played with a chop saw and we built some stuff when we were kids. My dad did some woodworking when we were growing up. So it wasn't something that was unfamiliar to me, but my dad never did that. He would make like kitchen cabinets and he built the church, type of thing. So I was familiar with tools and not afraid of tools, but like never got the fine woodworking skill sets. So I decided to build my first bass guitar. I took a course online, and it was back in the day when you had dial up and the picture would take like 20 minutes to get the picture to load up. And then it would have a set of instructions. So I'd have a picture and instructions, and I would go into the basement, try to figure out how to interpret these instructions. By the way, 6 out of 10 people that were in the class hurt themselves and ended up in the ER at one point. One dude kissed his leg with a router and took a whole size of baseball out of his leg with a router. So a bunch of people got hurt. 2 people broke their thumbs using a table saw. 1 person cut his thumb off. So I was like, somebody's going to get sued here. Yeah. I ended up getting to the point I was one of 2 people left that finished and actually completed the bass guitar. And so my father-in-law was like, wow, what the heck is that? I've never seen anything like that. You made that. He's not a woodworker. So he's like, my financial guy's a bass guitar guy. I'm going to show him some pictures. So he shows him some pictures. So next thing you know, introduces me to his financial guy, Jeff Kerkorian. And Jeff's like, dude, can you build me one? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, how much? I'm like, I don't know. $1,000. At that point, $1,000 is a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it's still a lot of money.
You thought you made it. You thought,
yeah. And I thought that was a lot of money. And then I was like, so I built 2. He paid for 1, and I bought all the materials to build 2. So I built 2, and I had 1 that was completely paid for, free. All the materials were paid for by him, and I had a free bass guitar. And then somebody offered me money for that, so I sold that one for $1,200. I'm like, wow, I'm ahead. So so the thing was, it's like every single time that I did that, I was hanging out with people that were really great at playing bass guitars because I make really expensive stuff. So I only attract really great bass guitar players. So all of the people around me are amazing, and here I am. I'm like dunk, 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 and these guys are okay. Why even bother? I didn't enjoy the learning curve of that. I enjoyed learning building, but I didn't enjoy the learning curve of that. So again, you can see parts and pieces. Like there's some people that like to race triathlons. There's some people that really love being a volunteer.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to find your groove and you got to find your jam. And you got to find something that excites you. People are like, Russ, you're really excited all the time. Like, I'm doing stuff that's exciting.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. When I'm talking to 100 agent brokerage and it's $1 million a year deal, it's exciting. It's nerve-wracking as hell sometimes, but it's exciting. Okay. Yeah. And sometimes the things that make you really nervous are exciting. It's like, if you're not doing something that you're afraid of screwing up, you got to push the envelope a little bit. Like all of you that are listening to this podcast, if you're scared to start a podcast, you're scared to be on a podcast, go out there and do it. Like Jimmy, the difference between me and most people is I'm going to do the shit that scares most people.
Yeah. Oh, you and me both.
Like fear is like, dude, I still have fear, but I don't let it stop me. What's the highest thing you've jumped off of?
It's like the 10-meter diving board. You know what I mean? Like the Olympic diving board.
So 30 feet. You go to the 7 sacred pools of Hana and you hike all the way to the top of the mountain. You can actually jump the pools all the way down, the pools you can't see. And there's a couple of them, they're 80 footers.
Oh man.
By the way, you know how fast you're moving when you hit the water at 80 feet, from 80 feet?
Pretty freaking fast.
The answer's pretty freaking fast. One of the things is I'm not a mathematician.
Yeah.
All I know is it hurts like hell when you hit the water at 80 miles an hour. I don't care which angle you sit at, right? So 80 feet. I've done 182 miles an hour on the ground on a motorcycle. I road race 600cc super sport. I've flown 2 airplanes that most people would never even think about getting in. One's a P-51 Mustang, and yes, we rolled it, we looped it, and we stalled it. And then I flew an extra 330 aerobatic airplanes, 2,000-pound carbon fiber airplane with a co-pilot, and we spun that and flipped it and flat spun it and did a lum shavuk. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Type it in if you could spell it. If it comes up with something dirty, you spelled it wrong. It's an aerobatic maneuver where it's a tumbling flip at the same time, usually with the whole thing smoking. And it's the most amazing feeling in the world. Most people don't even want to get in an airplane, right? It's like Delta bores the hell out of me. It's like flying a couch. Like, why? Who wants to fly a couch?
Yeah. So no, I'm in the same boat, man. Like I haven't flown anything like that. That's fun stuff.
Do the things that scare you, right? Get involved with the things that scare you. Jump out of an airplane twice. The first time, you had no idea what's coming. The second time, you're doing it intentionally. The second time, you know what's coming. I will tell you, the second time is actually worse than the first time because the second time, you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Okay, so people don't put themselves in a position to stretch and feel uncomfortable or get scared. And if you don't do that, it's impossible to really move forward. It's like, how did you get from there to here? Scared the crap out of myself a lot. And I still do it on a weekly basis. I've got a new table saw actually that really has me not nervous as much as I'm going to be extraordinarily cautious with this thing. Because this isn't the kind, like, you make a mistake with this, it's going to throw something across the room. Maybe you. Okay, so you've got to do it right. So there's all of those things in the world. You got to be okay with going in and screwing something up. And sometimes you get hurt, right? But you got to be okay with going in and putting yourself in a position and dot the I's and cross the T's and try to do all the things to minimize. But like listing appointments, you know why most people stay as buyer's agents? A lot of real estate agents stay as buyer's agents because they're scared to death to do a listing appointment.
Yep.
With a buyer, you can throw them in your car and drive around enough and smile at them enough. Eventually, you'll go under contract on something.
Yeah.
But listing presentation, you actually have to do a presentation. And let's be clear, you don't do a good listing presentation the first time. You're not going to do a good one the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth or the seventh. And most of the people are like, well, I can do a decent listing presentation if it's somebody you know. But if it's somebody you don't know, then now you're outside your comfort zone, right? So how do we start to develop these skills? You got to do it, man. Like, I wasn't a good triathlete the first year or 2 or 3. I was like 3 years of beating myself stupid to get to the point where I was pretty good. It wasn't great, but I was pretty good. I had a job, so I couldn't get great.
Right.
To be great at that, you have to not have a job. But I got pretty good. I was fast for my age and fast for my weight. And I also like to eat. So it was a balancing act, you know. Go out and crush a 50-mile bike ride. I can eat whatever I want the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So you got to find the stuff that excites you and try different things.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, right? So with your position now, the vice president of growth and all that, what's your advice to agents, right, that are trying to grow their business, grow their groups or whatever they're trying to grow?
Yeah.
Right. What's the biggest piece of advice that you give people that are trying to grow their business?
Do stuff. They're like, okay, what stuff? So you got to figure out where the people are that are doing the things that you want to do and go and hang out with them, right? You got to get in the room. You got to get out and do stuff. I think, Jimmy, most people would say, well, Russ, you got to make more calls. I'm like, no, you don't. You got to get to know more people. You got to build more relationships. Jimmy, this is a relationship business. And I know there's a big push and people just think I'm a Neanderthal when I say AI is not going to make that big of a difference in your business because AI can't have a relationship.
Yep.
Can it enhance a relationship? Sure. Can Facebook enhance a relationship? Sure. Man, like you see the things I do on Facebook and the things I do on Facebook, you're like, wow, that's interesting. And that's different. You get to know me better. And then when I jump on here, the first thing you're like, dude, those bass guitars are great. Like you wouldn't know that if it wasn't for Facebook. So Facebook has actually facilitated an environment where you can actually know me better, know parts of me you might not know. Because like, listen, I don't do it in the front yard. So if you don't see me on social media, you probably wouldn't, You'd probably never know that because I'm not out in my front yard doing it. And you're not stopping by. Well, oh my gosh, your table's out in the front yard. What are you making? That's not how we roll, right? So social media has given people the ability to see things about people that they normally wouldn't know. You could get to know me a little bit in some of the things that I'm passionate about by watching me on social media. So with that being said, social media isn't the relationship. It can be the enhancement to the relationship. So we've got to start looking at social media as the thing that makes the relationship better, not the relationship. Think about if we just had a relationship on social media, that was it. And we never did this, and we never met face to face. And I never saw you on stage doing your thing amazing that you do, right? It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as deep, right? So utilizing social to deepen relationships and strengthen relationships and give you more visibility into relationships, that's amazing, but it doesn't replace the relationship. So Jimmy, I would say you've got to get in a position where you get in front of more people that are doing things that you love, right? So if you're going to build any business, where are the people that have or do or around that, right? Like, listen, man, you're going to find gun nuts at the gun range. You're going to find bowling nuts at the bowling alley. You're going to find golf nuts at the golf course, right? You're going to find beer drinkers and beer nuts at the pub, right? So let's get clear which one. I had this woman in this true story, okay? Her name was Ellen. I knew her back in the day, and she used to say this jokingly all the time, serious but jokingly. She was single, she was older, and she would say, "I just want to marry a rich guy with a boat." And everybody, we all laughed, right? And we knew she hung out at this little place down the street regularly. And I finally looked at her one day, and I'm like, "Ellen, are you serious?" And she's like, "Yes, I would love to marry a rich guy with a boat." I'm like, "Cool. Why don't you hang out at the marina?" And she looked at me, and she's like, and I quote, "Son of a bitch." She's like, "That's a great idea, Russ."
Yeah.
So, like, if you want to marry a rich guy with a boat, go hang out at the marina. And it becomes kind of a life lesson. And while I was kind of joking, I was very serious. Like, if you love golfing, build your real estate business around people that you golf with. Go get in a couple of golf leagues, and you're going to meet people that love golf. And by the way, they're going to say, "Hey, Rose, how's the market?" And I'm going to say, "Hey, the market's great. By the way, I got a thing that I do every month. You want me to send it to you?" And they're going to say, "Yeah." And the other two guys are going to be like, "Send it to me too." Now I go golfing and jump in a threesome with three people that I don't know. I'm going to play a round of golf for 4 or 5 hours. And guess what? We're going to talk about stuff. And most of us are going to talk about business stuff, right? Yeah. This is the opportunity. So every week I can add 3 people to my sphere of influence. That's 12 in a month. That's 144 people in a year. I do that for 2 or 3 years. I've got 500 people that I've played golf with that know I'm a real estate person. And I now can add value long-term. There's the simplest business plan in the world. Shampoo, rinse, repeat. Go out and do something you love. Meet people doing something you love. Plan to add value. And do it intentionally and do it consistently. The part where I see where people miss it is, number one, they don't add value. They try to get something from them instead of give something to them. When I give something to them, I do get something from them. I get their info. And then I give and give and give and give and give and give and give every month something that's valuable to them. And then next thing you know, they call me when it's time to do a house sale. So why are we doing it? Like, do this the easy way. Why are we doing this the hard way? Do it the simple way. Add value, give people what they're looking for, and do it consistently. By the way, the next thing you need to be looking at is a contractor list, because Jimmy, you got a bunch of contractors you need every time that you do a house inspection. Like, you should be able to say, "I've got 3 people I know that do that. Pick one of them, let's roll," right? People are like, "Well, Russ, there's a liability in that." Not if you vetted them all and you know they've done good jobs for other people. And I tell people, this is a list of people that have done good job for everybody. I can't guarantee what they're doing. They're not me, but these people have a reputation of doing a good job. Here's 3 of them. Let's go. Right now, I become a resource. So instead of just trying to get stuff, how do I become a resource? So I manage those, and then I can take my business to the next level. So how do you grow? Grow doing stuff you love with people you love doing it with. Simple.
Simple, not easy, right? Like you then you have to do the thing, whatever
losing weight is simple.
Yeah.
Cut a leg off. Lose 30 pounds, cutting a leg off. Right? Almost lost 4 ounces cutting my thumb off. So
you probably lost 2.5 ounces.
Yeah, it was ugly, right? So, but the thing is, like, it's super important. It's all of that, right? And people don't think, how do I build a deeper relationship? They're like, how do I get a deal? Like, you're going to get a deal from building a deeper relationship, right? And you got to be willing to get out there, and you got to pick something and do it consistently. It's like, we're always consistent. We're either consistently consistent or we're consistently inconsistent. We're always consistent.
Yep.
Right. So I need to be consistently consistent. Listen, man, I'm known for looking like this because I do this consistently. I'm known for having this hair, and except for when I'm bald, I'm known for having this hair because this is what I do consistently. I'm known for a bunch of things because that's what I do consistently. So what are you known for? Get known for something.
I love it, man. I love it. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, the easiest way to catch me is I'm still on Facebook. So funny enough, the median age for the first time home buyer is 38. Second time home buyer 61, by the way. So those people are on TikTok. So I'm still on Facebook, right? So that's where the majority of my people are, age group wise and demographic wise. And you can find me on Facebook, Russ Lagan on Facebook, and jump in a friend request. I got a bunch of friends in there, and I only take people that know me through something, and mostly real estate related people. So I've got a very collated group of people in Facebook, and that's where I do stuff and business stuff. And a great place if you want to connect. People ask me to jump on stage for them and meet their groups and train them, teach them, or they need help converting a recruit. That's what I do.
I love it, man. Yeah, and you guys reach out to Russ. Make sure you talk to him and see him wherever he's going to be, because it is always a good show when Russ is out there.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for joining me this morning and getting up early with me and getting it all dialed in. I appreciate you. Yes, man. Thank you. Next week, we'll be back at the same thing, KGCI Radio, streaming live again. And we'll be back next week with the Elite Real Estate Podcast again next week. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.